Yes, we are still uncovering the truth about the history of so-called African Americans. We're looking at the history before slavery, and we're reclaiming our identity, and it's making folks a little uncomfortable. Why? Because they know that this truth threatens the ideology of white supremacy. We are unapologetically challenging the narrative of history that was created for us. This is part 4 of the series, Prove Your Hebrew Identity. It is our hope that by the end of the series, you will be able to boldly and confidently prove your Hebrew heritage. Let's get started. All right, let's pick up where we left off last time. We're going to dig a little deeper. This comes from The Voice, and it says, "The white issue. Jews are not white." And the author says, "And that those who claim we are and exclude our history and literature from the newly emerging multicultural canon are our oppressors." So you are being an oppressor if you say that they are white. Now that's interesting. Because when we hear the word, these are the images that come to mind. But they're saying they are not white. So we have a conundrum here. There's some confusion. Because on the one hand, the privileges that come with quote-unquote whiteness are bestowed on those with skin color that look like this. White supremacists targeted black people because of a skin color. They didn't care if they were black Christians, black veterans, or black patriots. No. Those discriminatory practices exist because the skin color looked like this. You can see we have a lot to unpack. Let's keep going. All right, this comes from Evolve. It says, groundbreaking Jewish conversations. It says, being white is not the Jewish norm. So did you know that? That it's not the norm for them to be considered white? It goes on to say how the Mishnah can help us deconstruct a white normative approach to Judaism. Sounds interesting, so let's see what it says. All right, he says, while white Jews might take for granted that ancient Jews looked like them, the evidence is otherwise. Well, that's what we've been saying for a while now. He says, as white Jews are trying to challenge racism within the Jewish community and in wider American society, many are looking for guidance in traditional Jewish sources. However, there are not many places in the early rabbinic literature that can help us deconstruct such biases. So I'll drop down to the statement from this Ishmael. He says, the children of Israel are like boxwood, so the color boxwood, neither black nor white, but of an intermediate shade. So then now we need to find out what boxwood looks like, right? All right, let's take a look. All right, so let's use their words to get a better understanding of what they say. The color of the people would be, this is the color boxwood right in here. Would you agree that a boxwood color would have some melanin? I would say so. So I have several pictures here. Which one do you think comes closest to this boxwood color? And see, this is why we have to teach this information, because words and terms are just thrown out there. And if you don't know what they mean, you just continue to accept the false narrative. So when you compare the pinkish color skin, do you come away with boxwood here? Definitely not for these two pictures. This one can come close. She's very close. He's a bit too dark. So somewhere in the middle, this is supposed to be what the people look like. All right, let's keep going. So this article comes from the Daily News, and here's a quote from Rupert Murdoch. He had an all-white cast in the movie Exodus, Gods and Kings, and people started calling him out on it because the cast was all white. And his response was, "Since when are Egyptians not white?" That was his response. So see, the lie about Egyptians being white has been told so many times, it's just accepted as the truth now. So even Bible teachers promote this lie, and it's time for us to push back. We've allowed them to get away with these lies for far too long. Why? Because we didn't know how to respond. So we said nothing. Well, no more. We're going to let them trap themselves in their own lies. So he's saying, since when are Egyptians not white? So the only way Egyptians can be white is if Ham, the father of Mizraim, looked like this. Ham would need to look like one of these men, because a white father, white mother combination would not be able to produce a black child. And of course, he would have to be black, because that was the justification Europeans used to enslave people of color. They used the curse of Ham myth that was sanctioned by the Roman Catholic Church. Religious scholars taught it, and preachers used it to indoctrinate the masses. But there's a problem with the theory. If they're going to use the curse of Ham myth, then Ham would have to look like this, the one in the middle. So if you follow that logic, then you're talking about Noah being a white man married to a white woman. They had 2 white sons and 1 black son. Okay, so we all know that science disproves that ridiculous notion, right? But do you see the deception here? It's convenient for Ham to be black to enslave people of color. But it's also true that the Egyptians, who supposedly descended from a black man, is white when Europeans need to lay claim to the glory of Egypt. So shouldn't we be able to rely on the Egyptians to tell us what they look like? This is a replica of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, and they found this. It's a gilded coffin that's resting inside a sarcophagus, and it has carved quartzite, and it's in the original burial chamber. But look at the wall behind it, because the Egyptians painted this. They were painting themselves. You can clearly see that these are dark, melanated people, which would confirm that their father had to be black. That Ham, the father of the Egyptians, or Mizraim, had to be a man of color. All right, this is another one. It's a limestone relief depicting Ramses II smiting his enemies, and this can be found in the Egyptian National Museum in Cairo. Now you can clearly see this man is not a European, clearly. So these lies that they've been telling now for far too long to promote this ideology of white supremacy, that only white people can create great things or build anything great. It's ridiculous. How desperate do you need to be to continue with these lies when the evidence is clearly showing that it's not true? So if we now know what the Egyptians look like, let's take a look at what Moses looked like. This comes from Exodus 2:19. It says, "Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel their father, he said, 'How is it that you have come so soon today?' And they said, 'An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock.'" So how did they describe Moses? They said he looked like an Egyptian. And we just saw images of what the Egyptians look like. So Moses had to be a dark melanated man. Guess who else looked like an Egyptian? This comes from Acts 21:37 through 38. "Then as Paul was about to be led into the barracks, he said to the commander, 'May I speak to you?' He replied, 'Can you speak Greek? Are you not the Egyptian who some time ago stirred up a rebellion and led the 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness?'" So how did Paul look? Like an Egyptian. Clearly a man of color. Let's keep going. So this is a statue, and it's found in an Egyptian museum. And it's a statue of an Egyptian named Metjetsi. And this is from the Old Kingdom to the 18th dynasty. So take a look at him, and it's showing him at different stages of his career. But look at his hair texture, in addition to the skin color. Now, what type of comb would he need for hair like that? So here are some artifacts from the Egyptian gallery. You can see some braided hair extensions on the top left. Now, which ethnic group would need those? Also, you see a hair pick and a comb. Again, who would need these? Those familiar with afros would certainly need a hair pick. So again, the evidence is overwhelming that these sons of Ham were people of color. All right, so here is a quote from Antoine Thompson D'Avedy, 1810-1897. It says, "The Jews have assimilated in physical characters to the nations among whom they have resided." All right, let me unpack that for you. Basically, they're saying when someone who is a Jew lives in a location among people who are black, then they turn black. If they live in a place where the people are white, then they turn white, and then the in-between. All right, so he says, "Though still to be recognized by some minute peculiarities of the physiognomy. In the northern countries of Europe they are fair, or xanthous. Blue eyes and flaxen hair are seen in English Jews, and in some parts of Germany the red beards of the Jews are very conspicuous. Those of Portugal are very dark. There are many of them in Cochin and in the interior of Malabar." Okay, so we see how these folks have just created major confusion because they need us to believe the narrative when the facts are not lining up. So they become creative, or as Rachel Dolezal said in the last video, it's just creative fiction. No, it's a lie. It's a lie. My gosh. So that's why we have to share this information using these books and articles and old newspapers and quotes to help you arm yourselves so that you can prove your Hebrew identity. Okay, because you see, there is some major confusion here. All right, let's keep going. All right, so let's read this article from Brill to get an understanding of what's happening here. And I have the source here. You can go and pull this journal up on your own. It says, applying the terms Jew and Judaism in the ancient period has recently been challenged by a number of scholars. First, the terms translated as Jew and Judaism are rare in the ancient period. And second, it is argued that these terms retroject later understandings of Judaism as a religion back into a period when Israelites and Yehudim are rather understood as an ethnic group. So they're interchanging an ethnic group with a religion. It says Judeans is preferable as a designation to Jews. So back in the day when Messiah was in the land, they were Judeans. All right, and we know that that comes from one of the tribes of Israel, Judah. That's where we get Judeans. All right. Or Yehudi, and there are other pronunciations for them. I won't get into that part today. But it says, two challenges have arisen. Some argue that the ethnic meaning of Yehudim changed to a more religious meaning. Listen to when this happened, in about 100 BCE. It says, others insist that Jew and Judaism have always communicated both an ethnic and religious meaning and still do, and so to insist on an ethnic only meaning we're talking about a people who are Judeans, in the ancient period is misleading. So here in this article, he is, trying to decipher where the truth is, but the bottom line of what he is saying is that this is a fairly recent term where you're talking about a Jew as an ethnic group, equating it with Judaism, which is a religion, versus in the ancient days when they were Judeans or Yehudis. All right, let's keep going. All right, so pay close attention here because we're going to dig deep into this. So this article is saying that Ashkenazi Jews descend from 350 people, scientists say. Geneticists have found serial bottlenecks in European Jews' history and postulate that today's community is just 600 to 800 years old. It says there may be no such thing as a Jewish gene, but communities can definitely have defining characteristics. And one such community is Jews with roots in Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, this confirms what we covered last time. So when you're looking at this word ish, the people we're referring to, they're talking about people who converted to a religion 600 to 800 years ago. Please don't miss that point. Because we showed last time the chart from the sons of Noah that this particular group, which make up 90% of the people with this title, descended from Japheth, from Ashkenaz. They did not descend from Shem. So you have these different colors like a rainbow where you're saying, oh, they can be this color, they can be this color, they can be olive here, they can be boxwood here, they can be zangseth there. No, No, we're not talking about a chameleon here. You're just, no other group of people seem to be able to do that. Okay? And we don't accept that regarding any other ethnic group. So why are we doing it here? Why is there an exception? So that we're clear. This group of people right here converted to a religion, and the science is proving that these people, the ethnic race or identity for this group of people is that they are Central and Eastern Europeans. These are Europeans. I'm trying to be as clear as I possibly can so that you can get this. Let's keep going. Let's look at some more confirmation. This is from the scientists, and here's the link for you. It says the majority of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from prehistoric European women, according to study published today, October 8th, in Nature Communications. While the Ish religion began in the Near East, and the Ashkenazi Jews were believed to have origins in the early indigenous tribes of this region, new evidence from the mitochondrial DNA, which is passed on exclusively from mother to child, suggests that female ancestors of most modern Ashkenazis converted to Judaism in the North Mediterranean around 2,000 years ago, and later in West and Central Europe. So when you look where you have all these different colors, this explains why you have those who look like Europeans living in Germany, Russia, and these other places, because they are Europeans. But that is not what the original stock of those who descended from the ancient Israelites looked like. Let's keep going. All right, so let's look at some of our resources. This comes from a book called Semitic and Hamitic Origins, Social and Religious by George Aaron Barton, and this was written in 1934. So I'll pick up in the middle paragraph. It says, similarly, Gerlin reached on the basis of physical resemblances, such as the formation of the skull, and on linguistic grounds, the conclusion that all the Asiatic Semites can be traced in their beginnings to the North African regions. Gerlin's view is in some respects peculiar. He held to the racial unity of the African races and regards the Semites as one of them. The Hamites and Semites were to him one people, and even the Bantus are, he thought, related to them. So they're pretty much talking about the physiognomy, the features, the color of these people, that they looked alike. They had dark melanated skin. All right. And then finally, this source, it's called On the Classification and Geographical Distribution of the Mammalia by Richard Owen. Now this one was published in 1859. So I'm going to touch on something here as I make my last point. All right, so let's see what he's saying here, because as I said, what they're trying to do is make it seem like the children of Israel are the only group of people on the planet who are like chameleons, where they can just change colors at will in a very short period of time based on the location where they're living. In one place, if they're in Africa, they're swarthy and black and dark. But if they move to Europe, they just suddenly turn into this European-looking creature with long blonde hair. So listen to this. I'm reading the bottom of page 96 and the top of page 97. He says, with reference to the characteristics of color, which are extreme, we have now opportunities of knowing how much that character is the result of the influence of climate. We know it more particularly by that most valuable mode of testing such influences which we derived from the peculiarity of the Jewish race. Listen to this. For 1800 years, that race has been dispersed in different latitudes and climates, and they have preserved themselves distinct from intermixture with other races of people. So they're not mixing with other races like the other nations. So they need to explain how is it they're just changing colors like this. So here's what they say. There are some Jews still lingering in the valleys of the Jordan, having been oppressed by the successive conquerors of Syria for ages, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. So they're black here if they're living on the Jordan. But now listen, others of the Jewish people participating in European civilization and dwelling in the northern nations show instances of the light complexion, the blue eyes, and the light hair of the Scandinavian families. Now come on. Come on. All right, he says the condition of the Hebrews since their dispersion has not been such as to admit of much admixture by the proselytism of household slaves. So see, they need another way to say it. Well, maybe they were mating with the slaves. So he says, we are thus led to account for the difference in color by the influence of climate. So it's like there is no other explanation. We can't explain this, why these people started off being black, but when they moved to Europe, they have red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes. So folks, this is the result of this fantastic lie and the omission of the knowledge that these people converted to a religion. They're comparing the converts to those of the original stock, plain and simple. There is no other explanation because this is not happening to no other group of people on the planet. It's ridiculous. Now listen to the scripture from Amos 9 and 7 as I wrap up this session. It says, are you not like the people of Ethiopia to me, O children of Israel, says the Lord? Did I not bring up Israel from the land of Egypt, the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Kir? All right, again, this comes from Amos 9 and 7, where the Most High is comparing the children of Israel to the people of Ethiopia. What color are the Ethiopians? They're a very dark-skinned people. So I leave it to you to decide. Are you going to keep believing the creative fiction, as Rachel Dolezal called it, that was created by the elite? My people are destroyed because they lack knowledge, Yah said. But you can choose not to be ignorant, which is why we have to keep uncovering the truth so that we can reclaim our identity. If it's making folks uncomfortable, then so be it. That's their problem. They've been comfortable with the lies long enough. So we're not done. Next time we're going to dig deeper into the curses and see how they point directly to our people. There is no other group on the planet who has experienced a similar fate. So it is our hope that by the end of this series, you will be able to boldly and confidently prove your Hebrew heritage. Shalom, everyone.